The seagulls follow trawler. It's because they think sardines will be thrown into the sea. Thank you very much.
Talking nonsense. So I thought, no, enough's enough. Why should I put up with that? Talking nonsense. So I thought, no, enough's enough. Why should I put up with that? Don't back down, double down. Don't back down, double down.
Yes, here we go, the Monday Club, the original Celtic podcast on a Monday night, and as always, with that originality, means the original co-contributor on a Monday night, and that's my brother Jonathan. What's happening, son?
Yeah, all good, just about recovered after the shenanigans of Saturday.
Yes.
The backlash at Ibrox when you see Rangers dropping points. The fact we now have a very interesting tie with Shakhtar Donetsk tomorrow night. Perhaps not as interesting as we were hoping, Russell, but certainly one that could capture the imagination and still springboard us into Europe after Christmas. Plenty to talk about, as always, on a Monday.
There always is plenty to talk about on a Monday, Jonathan. And you know, the best bit is we've got so much out the road already this weekend. We have, we've called it as we've seen it on this Bhoycie Bus this weekend. We have had unbelievable numbers watching. We've had unbelievable numbers increasing in the subscriber list. We're, as it stands, 52 away from the 3,000 mark, which I targeted to do before the 6th of December. By my calculations, Jonathan, we're going to smash that barrier. And I really do hope, if you haven't hit that subscribe button, that you will. If you want to hit the like button and you're in the audience just now, then do so. And please keep the comments coming. That's what we want. There is also several Bhoycie Bus members. That keeps the bus running. I know Phil likes to call it a doff for the cap. I like to call it paying for new alloys, Jonathan, on the bus, because we do want to expand the channel a wee bit more as well. We've got different ways and means to do that. They're all going to cost a wee bit more. And as I've always said, I want the bus to be self-sufficient. It's brilliant putting on all these hours. If you don't want to be doing it out your own wages, you want to be doing it from the channel. Anyway, if not, I'll pay it anyway, Jonathan, as long as we can keep it growing. And that is the plan right now. And no more so than this weekend has the Bhoycie Bus been growing, because what we did this weekend was we dealt with difficult situations, Jonathan, and we called it down the line, down the middle, without fear or favour remotely in our sights. What we did, Jonathan, was we called it exactly as we seen it. Now, it's not all about backpatting and all that bullshit, right? But sometimes you can't help but watch other fan media and all that and go, has someone chopped your bollocks off? Call it for what it is. See when you get an opportunity to speak to Ange Postecoglou. Do you know something I've decided today, Jonathan? I said this in the group chat earlier this afternoon after some more talking, lettuce is the vegetable that people are talking about a lot right now, Jonathan. And I think it's wet lettuce questions that are getting asked, honestly, to these fucking players and managers. It's embarrassing. Call him out. Ask him after the game or before the next, maybe not Champions League. Maybe I'm being a wee bit harsh. See, before that next league game, if they're not saying, do you expect to be, having to talk about VAR again at the end of this 90 minutes? What is the club's position on this? These are standard questions. Fans, remember, Jonathan, they're not journalists. Or are they? Are they journalists in waiting? Is that what they want to be? Because if you're a fan, I don't understand how you're not saying, what's the club's take on where we are right now? That's all we should be looking for from fan media and all that bollocks. But I doubt it will happen. And that's why, Jonathan, we will never, ever, ever become in those press conferences. We're not going to do it. I've decided the path for the bus is going to be continually doing what we do at this moment in time, hopefully with more variation on shows, and maybe one time we'll be able to do it from a studio or something, and we expansions like that. But never at any point are we going to sell our soul to the devil. Never at any point are we going to dilute our opinions, because do you know what? Seeing Celtic fans, hour of frustration, I nearly said need there, but it wasn't hour of need. An hour of frustration, though, and they wanted somewhere, Jonathan, to come, vent their frustrations and have those vented back and replicated by people they invest their time in watching on a screen. The Bhoycie Bus delivered this weekend, and well done to everyone involved over the weekend, because sometimes you can be scared to talk about these things and call them for exactly as you see them. And we all know exactly what I'm talking about right now. There was biased decisions made, Jonathan, and I've got no hesitation in calling that. If I believe that a decision can only be arrived at via bias, then I will say that. I don't think every decision, Jonathan, that goes against Celtic is made by bias. But if I do think that's the only conclusion I can arrive at, I think it's refreshing, Jonathan, that at least one of these channels start doing that and doing it in a way that actually stimulates people's brains as opposed to just absolute slavering shite. Do you know what I mean? Do it in a way where it's, good debate. Now, before we get any further forward, Jonathan, we have got an action-packed night tonight. There is 71 watching live as well, so a big thank you to you. But there is going to be a few changes to the bus coming up, Jonathan. I'm going to just quickly go through what's happening on the channel. Bob keeps calling it Vatican-assisted refereeing. Even he doesn't believe what he's saying. Which,
don't know where he's got that from.
I think Bob's good banter, for the noise ups, and he's only here for the noise ups. But Jonathan, this week we will see tomorrow night's PMP after Shakhtar that you were mentioning earlier. Then the first ever and the new weekly show, the Wednesday morning, the midweek morning show, Jonathan, called Boyce'S Breakfast Bar. That is going to be happening between 8 a.m. and 9 a.m. Some weeks it might be 7:30 till 8:30. But what it looks like we're going to have is David Logue one week, Johnny Logue the next, the Logue brothers, Jonathan. That's what it's looking at. But on top of that, I've got more good news, because we are looking at having, obviously, the Predictor League that I know people were keen on. And it was showing the bus casting an eye on the rest of the SPFL, Jonathan, which I don't think gets done enough. And sometimes it's good for me to be sort of casting my eye over it. So I'm more knowledgeable about it. So at least once every 2 weeks, if not once a week, Scott Cameron is going to be joining me, Jonathan, because he's going to start running the admin of the league, and me and him are going to be, which is great of him.
I'll be ran with an iron fist as well, knowing Scott in the WhatsApp chat. There's no danger anyone will be missing their scores with Scott in charge of this. He's like Perlogini Kalina, who we were talking about in the 0203. He'll just give you the eyes if you've not got those decisions in. So that'll be good. That'll be one to look forward to.
You need that, Jonathan. So Big Phil's juggling enough, and spinning enough plates, helping out the bus. So Scott's going to take over the league, and it gets him an opportunity to be on the channel more. And I know Scott's always in the comments and a bit of a fan's favourite in there. So looking forward to that as well. Anything else? Jeez, it's just all happening, mate. It's all happening. Kaiser, I know, was getting a lot of love when he came on with me. So we've tried to come up with a compromise. How are we going to make this work, Kaiser? So me and him are going to do at least once every 4 to 6 weeks. We're going to do a wee Sunday special. It'll be the Venga Bus, if you want to call it that. Kaiser's Venga Bus, something like that we'll call it.
That'll be chaos.
Me and him, once every 4 to 6 weeks, are going to do a show together, and he can crack on with all his madness. but then all the brilliant points he makes as well. That's what he brings to the table. So we're looking forward to doing that. So it's a couple of wee additions to the bus. But anyway, enough of all that nonsense. Jonathan, we've not heard your take on the weekend. It was the VAR weekend. I think this weekend you can already put an asterisk beside it, Jonathan. My fear is if they keep this up, will there be an asterisk at the end of this season, Jonathan? There's still 3 Glasgow derbies to play. If these Muppets keep this up, could this be a season that ends up getting looked at, no matter who wins the league title, the VAR asterisk season?
Well, I sincerely hope not. It certainly made its debut in stunning fashion at the weekend, to put it mildly. I've not seen a more impressive debut. I don't know in how long. That was something else. Not quite exactly what all of us were hoping for, but I can honestly say I wasn't overly surprised by it either. We obviously discussed VAR last week coming into Scottish football, and both mentioned we had reservations about it. Unfortunately, I think our feelings towards it were kind of lived out on Saturday at points. There's some interesting decisions, to say the least, in there. I think the one that's kind of getting the most scrutiny, if you like, is clearly the handball, where James Forrest has clearly hit it off the Hearts player's hand. It's as clear as they come.
Deliberately, someone claiming Jonathan, deliberately.
Oh well, yeah. I mean, I've heard this argument, and I just can't believe that's even something anyone's taken seriously at all. I don't know where people come up with these opinions sometimes on something like that. But I mean, if we're looking at the game as a whole, I think there's moments where VAR gets involved, and I think most of it's not as bad, but the handball one is the truly baffling one. I think the Ralston header at the start is just clear ineptitude from Nick Walsh. That is just total and utter incompetence, because if he lets that go and doesn't blow his whistle, I think that goal's given. And I think they were looking to give that goal, and that's why they took a lot longer with that decision, because they were thinking of giving it, but then they realised they couldn't because the whistle had gone. Yeah, because it wasn't actually allowed.
Why is he blowing his whistle?
I think he's just completely stupid and forgotten that VAR is in place. I genuinely think he's just that silly. I know other people will have different viewpoints on it and perhaps think it's a bit of bent officiating, and that is another argument, of course, that comes into it. Mm-hmm. But I think the reason I think it's just stupidity on his part is I think because he then instinctively, when I think he knows when Hearts get that first penalty, I think he knows that's a penalty. I think he doesn't give that because he's realised he's fucked up down the other end. VAR's told him. When he's made that mistake for the first one. I think that's why they've had that long wait. And they've probably said to him, look, mate, you can't blow your whistle that quickly. You need to actually let the play continue, and then we can actually properly review it. And I think that's in the back of his head when he doesn't give the penalty to Hearts. That was clear as day. The first time we seen it. And then, I think he was thinking, well, this is a way of leveling it out. Forgetting VR's in place, and it's just obviously going to come straight back around. Well, no, that's a penalty. We need to give that. But it was interesting because they spent about 2 or 3 minutes on that decision as well, even though that was clear, as I say, to everyone involved. And even the most diehard of Celtic fans, I don't think, could have an argument with that being a penalty. But then, just before half-time, we get the handball, and it's certainly worth debating. It's certainly worth debating. I know some are turning around and saying it isn't a penalty. I know some are saying it isn't a penalty in the media.
But Jonathan, I want to go back to what you just said. Let's just go with the exact theory you've just given for the decision before, right? That there's no point in not giving it because VAR will come in if you're not giving one. That's what you were saying there, basically, right? Yep. The referee's instincts, you think he's made a hash of it, right, with the Ralston one, and to level things off, an old school move, you could say, before VAR would be just don't give the next obvious glaring one to the other team, and that's it leveled up in my, do you know what I mean, in his mind. So if that's what you think he's done, and then you've kind of quite smartly said, but that was stupid though, because of course VAR are going to come in. What was more obvious about the Cameron Carter-Vickers one? Than the, what was he called, Michael Smith? What was the difference? I think they're both as obviously each other. And even if anyone thinks Cameron Carter-Vickers one was more obvious, we're talking percentages that are very small here. Both. If it's a referee's gift not to make the call, and it's VAR's gift, Jonathan, to come in and go, oh no, you've missed one there. How are VAR doing that with that first one, that Cameron Carter-Vickers one, and not doing it with the Forest handball. Moments, Jonathan, remember this is moments later. So they're getting in the swing of this VAR crack, Jonathan. They're warmed up. They've had a few touches of the ball now. It's time for them to, we're in the swing of this. There's another one. Call it in. For that, with 2 minutes apart. Now, tell me, Jonathan, how, if he's not giving it, where were VAR?
Yeah, and I think that's where the problem is. I think Nick Moss had a terrible game for both teams on the pitch, but I think when you're looking at the VAR, it goes back to what I said last week with Stephen McLean. He was horrendous last week against Hibs. Absolutely horrendous. I said it was like Bobby Madden last week on Monday. And if he's running the VAR, I don't know what we'd need to get a decision from him in some ways. I was astonished more at the fact the decision was made so quickly, because I was looking at it and I can kind of almost see why Nick Walsh is a bit reluctant to give it, because he's maybe got the hand down by his side and he's maybe thinking, I need the VAR to help me out here because I'm not sure. And I see if we didn't have VAR and he didn't give it, I probably wouldn't be as annoyed about it, to be perfectly honest with you.
I agree with that.
But
Spot on.
I think once you know that's there, and the fact that they literally spent about 10 seconds on it when most decisions were getting quite a bit of time and scrutiny up until that point. It was almost as if it just brushed to one side, which getting at half time here, we won't really look at that. And I think, Mark made a very good point. He was on Clyde earlier, for those that don't.
We're going to get to that. Yes, go on.
Yeah, but since we're talking about the subject matter anyway, I think he makes a very good point. And I think you do have to get the referee on field to go over and look at that and think, look, this is a very questionable one. You probably want to have another look at it, because he's only seen it once in real time. And, it happens very quickly, and it's very hard to always make a full, firm decision when you've got to make a decision like that. But when he could have had another opportunity to go over to the monitor there, I think he makes a different decision if Nick Walsh gets the chance to see that again. But he's not given that opportunity.
So why is he not given that opportunity, though, Jonathan? And how can they make that decision in 15 seconds? Right, here's the deal. They've not had time to watch even a slow motion replay in the time that they told him to carry on. And if they have, they've watched it once. And if they've watched it once, still then it should be, whoa. We need a closer look at this. We might need you to come over. But let us look at it again. For this all to be done in 15 seconds blows theories out the water, Jonathan. This is ineptitude. This is what's getting me now. And I've never been like this. Like, I hate being like, we're being cheated and all that shit. But you have to call it as you see it. And you know what? See the Cameron Carter-Vickers one? Yes, it took maybe too long. If you're a Hearts fan, you're raging at that. But ultimately, they get there. They fucking get there, and they get to the right decision. This wasn't afforded the opportunity, Jonathan, to get there. And I don't just mean the referee running over. I mean, how long? What is the interlude of time, Jonathan, between VAR saying to the ref, we want to look at the screen? Because it was 2-3 minutes before the referee goes over for the Cameron Carter-Vickers one to the screen, remember? So this doesn't need to be decided in 15 seconds. The ball's gone out for a throw-in. Whoa! We've got we're gonna have a second look. Okay, we're gonna have a third look. Okay, Nick, we want you to come over. I don't know why I'm holding my headset there as if I'm actually in the
You're getting into character as if you're actually going to be doing the VAR. You'll be doing this next. VAR decision.
That'll be good then. The Death. But you know what I mean, though? It's like I'm sitting there going, if you've came up, all I can hear, right, and this is maybe my bias kicks in. Because you know the personnel running the VAR for each match, again, and I touched on this at the weekend, I completely believe the reason that Scotland are announcing whoever's running VAR is based on Ali McCoy's pish for 10 years ago. I think that plays such a key part in it, and it's all, we need to be transparent because, Super Salary, told us all, tell us the names. I believe that's all kicked in again. And I think that's what they're trying to do this time round. Instead of it being, a compliance officer or anything like that. So my bias then kicks in, Jonathan, and all I can hear in my mind is that wee Fanny, the Conservative leader, the one, red card, Ibrox.
Douglas Ross.
All I can picture in my mind is that being Stephen McLean going, no penalty. because it's happened too quickly, Jonathan. But see, the thing is, we can argue to the cows come home with Kenny Miller's, with Michael Stewart's about this. And we're going to talk about the media's take on it, because they're cut probably between a rock and a hard place, but fuck them. When they're lying, they're lying. But one thing I will say is, at the divide in the debate, this isn't just not a Celtic fans saying this is a stonewaller. This is fans and other referees from other countries. I think Phil was touching on it yesterday. There was one of the EPL refs had tweeted unprovoked just to say, wow, how's that not getting looked at? Jonathan, that tells me this isn't black and white. This was never a 15-second decision. So that is where we've got to look at it first and foremost. If they took their time on it and it arrived at a different conclusion, I would be 90% as pissed off as what I am right now. But to judge that in 15 seconds, when we've just had 3 minutes before, as you rightfully said, a referee being corrected in their ear, you're going to need a second look at that, pal. You're going to need to have a second look at that. We've checked it. How is that not happening with James Forrest? Jonathan, please enlighten me. Help me.
I think we just know it was a case that Stephen McLean didn't want to know. It's as simple as that's the only conclusion you can really draw from it, is that McLean was not interested in that at all, but he wasn't willing to entertain it. He wasn't willing to entertain it. I mean, the whole game just felt like one decision after another was going against us, whether they were all right or wrong. It doesn't really matter. It was one of those games where it just kind of felt like Celtic were never going to be able to win that match, just because it just felt like everything that could go wrong was going wrong for us. But I mean, if you're looking at that penalty, I don't know what on earth is going on there in the VAR truck. And, somebody needs to have a word. I'd like to think, because I just think if something like that had happened in, the English Premiership, referees get graded on their performances in England, and if they're not performing well, they have to go down to the Championship. That's what happens in England. Now, I know we don't have enough referees probably to allow something like that perhaps to happen.
I think there's an element of it, though. I do think there's an element of it where referees from the top flight then they don't have to, but they just get allocated a game in a lower league. I'm sure that does happen.
Yeah, it doesn't seem to be as major a thing that happens in Scotland. I don't feel as England. Well, I don't know if it's just because the Scottish referees are so incompetent. They'd probably all be playing the Championship the next week because of the poor decisions all around. I mean, it wasn't just the Celtic game. Regan touched upon it yesterday. There was other games that were impacted by VAR and not in a very good way. I mean, I've seen the game with St Mirren, and they had a goal totally wrongly ruled out for me as well, where the boys put his hand up to protect himself, and he kind of caught the guy in the face, but it's right back in his own half, right at the start of the move, and they called it back. So I think clubs are going to, definitely get shortchanged a lot on VAR. You'll probably think VAR will end up ruling out a lot of perfectly good goals, in my opinion, and, potentially might end up benefiting the defensive teams a bit more, because we have found that has been the case in England when it's been brought in quite regularly. But if we're purely talking about the Celtic game, there's absolutely no reason for that handball not to have been looked at. Again, absolutely no reason for it, at all. And I think, anyone with with a set of eyes can see that is something that is at least worth considering. And I think that's the thing that, really gets at people the most, is more the fact it was just so easily dismissed as if it was nothing. When it was quite clearly, it's a big game-changing moment in the match.
This is it, Jonathan. Because Jonathan, this is my key issue with this, right? And I think it's Phil as well as Gary Brown have came in and said, I think their attitude is, it took too long, the Cameron Carter-Vickers one. But do you know what? I'm so much more willing on that side of it to go, it is the first weekend of VAR. It might take, it's unacceptable, that being the long-term sort of time scale it takes to make a decision. However, with it being a new system, first time ever live, Sky are there, the eyes of the world are the eyes of Scotland are watching. I mean, I've got to be honest, Jonathan. I didn't really think the time it took the Carter Vickers one was out of order as such. As much as I decided at the first replay, oh wow, it's a penalty. But that is to me genuine getting used to something. Natural progression, teething problems. Why? My issue is that fucking other one, 15 seconds, Jonathan. That's not teething problems. That's up here. That decision has been made, not on the camera. That decision is made up here. And as I say, all I can imagine in my mind is Stephen McLean going, no penalty, throw in, something along those lines. Because it just can't be done that quick. If Stephen McLean's looked at 2 different angles of that replay in that time, I'd be shocked. Let alone 2 slow motion replays in that time, would you be more shocked? Then I'd be triple shocked if he's watched 2 replays from different angles, Jonathan, that time, and still comes to the conclusion, I don't need a minute here, because I just took 6 minutes a minute ago to make a really obvious one. But this one, suddenly I'm just black and white on my decisions, Jonathan. I'm just boom. I'm just so authoritative. I am Kalina, as you say, Jonathan. No, absolutely not. And I'm sorry, that then reeks. And I'm not going to sit on this podcast for the rest of this season. I'd be afraid, Jonathan, to call it when I think we're getting thinglied here. Do you know what I mean? We're getting diddled here. You know, like they are at it. They're pulling our plonkers a wee bit. And the one thing about VAR, Jonathan, is it's transparent. Or is it? Because Clyde 1 is very interesting tonight. Our very own Mark Kearney, listen to it back if you've not, comes on and he managed to get that shaky voice out of Kenny Miller, Jonathan, that I thought I'd only ever heard once on the very same station before, with it being Derek Johnson when Chris Sutton grilled him. However, Mark Kearney is very good and he waits his turn to speak as they try to guide him up a garden path about Greg Taylor, about the 3 points, where it clearly says below Mark Kearney's name what he's called in about, which is VAR. Well, Mark doesn't miss. And he reminds them that Rangers-minded people might have a responsibility, Jonathan, to be saying in public that it was, but Kenny Miller's only kidding himself on, says Mark. And he's absolutely bang on the money. But all we'd heard on Clyde 1 before that was this new word, Jonathan. It's not a new word, but it's now going to be the word, in my opinion. And that, you're going to hear this all the time now. Yeah, totally understand, but that's subjective. That's subjective. Jonathan, you know, are we on a podcast at 9 o'clock? Well, it was 1 minute past. Well, it said 9 at my end. Subjective, isn't it? Subjective. There's no grey, you know, there's a grey area. Well, no, what did Big Ben say at the time? It was 9 o'clock, it's 9 o'clock. You know, we get to the Abada decision, Jonathan. There's nothing these plant pots can say is subjective about offside or a ball over a line, for example, right? In Abada's case, it was an offside decision. Jonathan, the same game, we seen an offside decision made, and it was correct. And the 2 lines come up, and it was against Celtic. And we thought, do you know what? Fair fucks to that. That's what VAR's there for. He's onside. Fine. On you go, you bastards. They've got a goal. Why are we not afforded that same luxury, Jonathan, it's a Celtic player? With a linesman who kept his flag down. Now, I appreciate them maybe not to bring out the flag until after the goal's been scored. But again, we've seen in the first half, they were quite happy to whistle as early as they possibly could. People need to make their mind up here very, very quickly what we're watching. Because with there not being lines there for the bad one, still hasn't been. That Gordon Dunker Clyde 1 was saying, well, Mark, you've not seen the wide photo, though, that's on Twitter right now. And if they'd let Mark back in, I have no doubts Mark would have said, that's not what we're talking about. Just shows the exact same definitive image that you use in the VAR studio to decide whether it's offside or not. We can all accept it, Jonathan, if Abada is offside. And,
yeah, of course.
I'm not saying he was onside. I think it's very close. Why are we not getting afforded the same image that what was being afforded yesterday? I can't get my head, not yesterday, earlier on in the same game. I can't get my head around that, pal.
No, and it was the other one I would have mentioned as well. And I think VAR was one of those handballs we discussed, and the other was that actual offside decision, which, as you rightly say, it was very close. It was very hard to tell because even from the angle they gave us, it wasn't definitive at all either way for me. It was very hard to tell because it wasn't actually along the line, the one they gave us either. So you're kind of having to almost second guess it yourself, which means what chance has anyone got when it's like that at that sort of angle? If that's what the VAR guys are looking at, because they must have different angles there. They've shown in the first half that they've got the option to put the lines in when it suits them. So it's like it does raise questions, and I think
chose not to show it.
Well, of course they did.
chose.
Of course they chose not to put them up, and that's always going to raise suspicion. This was always going to be the problem with VAR for me. Was it was always going to raise suspicion the moment it got brought in, and decisions start going against you, because people are naturally going to question it, particularly if they're debatable close calls like the offside one was. And I think, you know, if you get the lines on something like that, it just provides that clarity for the fans. They can at least see, right, okay, he's offside by whatever, his toes gone slightly early, whatever it is, and we can kind of move on with it and just be like, yep, check's done, looks fine, they've made the right decision, so be it, we can move on with that. But the fact that they weren't even putting the lines up makes me think they were second guessing themselves as well on that one. And again, crucial moment, because we were, you know, hanging on a wee bit at 4-3. Hearts were throwing everything at us. That was, you know, probably Hearts' best performance of the season, typically against us. No surprises there. But, you know, Celtic are in, you know, a real tough game there. That, you know, if Hearts had ended up going up the pitch and getting an equaliser in stoppage time, that offside then all of a sudden gets magnified a lot more than it has been. I think most of the discussion's been around the Ralston goal that was chalked off and the James Forrest handball. But all of a sudden, you know, if Celtic don't win that game, the Abadan offside then comes back into the mix there as well and gets talked about.
Celtic don't win that league. Celtic don't win that league by a goal.
Yep, well, that's again.
We've been there.
One of those. Yeah, we have been there, and you just know there's going to be so many more mistakes made with this technology, or whether you think they're honest mistakes or otherwise. I think we can be rest assured over the next few weeks, even before the World Cup, there's going to be some other absolute stinking decisions made with this technology in place. And the problem is, VAR seems quite good on paper, but then you forget it's still the same idiots that are actually running it. So it's like, what's the actual point, you know, in having it there if you're just going to have the same idiots that can't get the decisions right on the pitch for the last 10 years, then actually running it? I don't know what the solution is. So you're almost better in some ways having completely impartial people in the VAR truck. You're almost getting them in from England or somewhere else, and then at least people can be like, well, if they made a mistake, it removes that sort of feeling that, you know, there could be something more sinister going on with the officiating, which I think naturally fans are going to do as this goes on.
Jonathan, I think it's going to be very convenient now, and I've heard whispers of it already. It'll be Sky's fault, Jonathan. Why aren't they showing that replay? Sky will be given by VAR anything that VAR gives Sky. Do you honestly think, for the benefit of their broadcast, they are not going to be showing it on their screen? I mean, folk need to move on from blaming Sky for everything. If Sky Sports is fault, they're not showing the replay. But I think this is getting tedious. I've heard it on our own channel and on other places as well, loads of other spaces. I think that needs to really reel in. Think about it. If you're a content creator, right, on a tiny scale, or you're a huge giant broadcaster like Sky, do you honestly don't think it's box office putting up the VAR footage or clips that they're giving them? If they're doing that live, real-time VAR, look at the EPL. They use it every time because it's like you may as well hear the heartbeat. There may as well be a heartbeat sound effect, Jonathan, as the decision's getting made. I mean, why people think this is anything to do with Sky not deliberately showing replays of the lines? That Abada replay has not been gifted to the broadcaster. Get that in your head now. Anyone who thinks this is not a TV broadcasting, issue, they've got to separate the two. You've got to separate the two. What then, though, do I think about media coverage, Jonathan, is a different story. However, we've spent so much time on it. Look, we speculated, and we weren't the only people that speculate. It's not that we called it out, Jonathan. Everyone knew this was going to be dramatic. I would generally call it a circus already. I would call it something that's a wee bit darker than circus. Maybe too much fun for it, though, to be described as, Jonathan, because I think this time round, when I'm looking at that, I'm like, this is going one way, and that's dark. They have got to get their act together for the 3rd of January. It's the 3rd this year, isn't it? This season, isn't it?
Yeah, the derby is right. Yeah, right into the new year. But I mean, even just putting the VAR to one side, I think what's been overlooked is just how good the actual Celtic's resilience was to actually win that game. And it's been a shame because I don't think it's probably got the plaudits in the media that it's deserved how Celtic have actually performed there. And I think that's got lost in amongst the circus that you're talking about, because Celtic had their backs against the wall. That was looking very much like it could have ended up being a weekend where we slipped up and dropped points. Could have even lost that game, And defensively, I thought it was actually one of our poorer performances, putting the VAR stuff to one side because the penalties are both penalties for me, and I don't think we defended very well anyway throughout that game. But we still found a way to win, and it would have been very easy to fold there because, as I say, it felt like everything was conspiring against Celtic, whether you think rightly or wrongly on the decisions. It's if no matter what Celtic did, they just didn't seem to have a way of getting through, and either the Hearts resolve or the refereeing decisions that were following. And I just thought it was a very impressive way to win a game. And I'd echo the likes of what Terry and Mark have said. It's been probably one of the most enjoyable victories that we've actually seen as a Celtic fan in quite a long time, and I think it's one that will live long in the memory because of the fact we overcame so much adversity to win that. And you can bet your bottom dollar that come the end of the season, if Celtic win the league again, this will be one of the games we look back on. Yeah, well, I think it'll be a win as well. A spoiler alert for those that are maybe not as sure, but I think with the way things are, it's not a prediction. This is a spoiler. Celtic will win the league in my opinion, because the way the way that Celtic are playing and the way that Rangers are playing, it feels like it could only go one way. Even if VAR is going to try and help them out, it still won't be enough, I don't think, to get them over the line. And if we are right, and I think we will be, then it looks like this will probably be another one of these key matches that we look back on at the end of the season and say that was a huge 3 points to have picked up at Tynecastle. When you look at the end of the season, you're going through the big games that got us over the line. This one will probably be right up there, if not at the very top.
I think that's a good way to round that up, Jonathan, that aspect of the conversation. However, Jonathan, we've still got games to play in a professionally run competition. One where, the other side of Celtic's sort of fixture list, Jonathan, tends to be in Europe. And something, I'm trying to think where VAR's played a big part. I can't remember it. I can't remember thinking it was as incompetent as having one game in Scotland.
No, I can't think of any time where VAR has been particularly,
this isn't like
got people's backs up in Europe.
Scottish football can sit and go, oh, it's just because you're getting used to it, guys. You're getting used to it. Well, I think we've played plenty of games in European football with this VAR setup, and it's been run by professionals, I'm afraid, not charlatans is one way to put it. Cheats is another way to put it, Jonathan. People with preferences of one team to another is one way of putting it. Inept, another way of putting it. I would combine a lot of those factors for each decision that gets made and absolutely batters us. But we will look at the game against Shakhtar because, Jonathan, always not lost, of course, officially in the Champions League. If we look at the Champions League group table, Group F, Jonathan, Real Madrid are 10 points, sitting pretty at the top. They're a banker to go through. All we need them to do is do their job right tomorrow. We want them through. We beat Shakhtar. We go a point behind them. Then, of course, you're relying on favours, right?
Good fortune.
But also, to those who tell us we are making loads of progress, we have been brilliant in the Champions League so far. Good, because over 6 games, which at the end of the day, a league table never lies. And when you enter into the Champions League, it's only a 6-game league, okay? Regardless of any of the dressing up people want to make. The point of the Champions League is you don't get 38 games where you get to, we started slow, but we pulled it around. This isn't that type of campaign. Champions League's cutthroat. Europa League was cutthroat last year. Okay? That'll be us having done, by the way, 12 group games since Postecoglou took over by then. So tangible progress, albeit we're against better teams now. But in Europe, my attitude is always firmly, Jonathan, we have to have a firm eye on it and take every game seriously, even when it seems we are down and out. What do you predict for tomorrow? Now, obviously, Jota isn't going to be back. I think David Turnbull returns, Jonathan. Starfelt could be back in contention. I don't see him throwing him into the start lineup, though. He seems to have been injured far too much of late to to be rusty. I think he needs to now be on a rehabilitation sort of process, getting
it'll be a few
back
weeks.
into
I think they might just look at him after the World Cup, to be honest, unless Jens does something very silly. Yeah.
Well, Jens seems to shine in this competition, Jonathan. I think his most impressive displays have been in the Champions League. We don't want to blindly trust the process. The Champions League is somewhere where I felt we could gauge the process. Well, we're out. However, I wouldn't describe it as, something that's been, when you look at the performances, like we've been absolutely shocking. What I would say is, over 4 games, I'm disappointed. We've only picked up a point. And I think when, after 4 games, you go to the same excuse for all 4 games, would tell me you're not learning at a Champions League rate. Now, I know it's difficult. I know it's the most Premier League competition. But no matter what competition you're in, Jonathan, if you do something wrong in the first game and the second game, you'd like to remedy it by the third or the fourth game. We still haven't. But if people want to believe this is down to bad fortune now, I think there's been an element of Celtic's been unlucky at times. I agree with that. Then luck tends to even itself out. Could we do the impossible? Could we set a tone tomorrow, get our first Champions League win of the season, which, by the way, will be worth hundreds of thousands of pounds to Celtic? Yep. Remember, for each win, if not £1 million or so, I don't know.
It's about £1 million, I think it is. So I think it's a fair bit of money just for winning the game. Huge money for Celtic in terms of competition prize money.
Aye, you're right. It must be up to about £1 million right now. It must be, because I'm trying to think in my head.
I think it's €1 million maybe, or something like that. So not quite £1 million, but
in 0102 under Martin O'Neill.
Hey! Oh, yes!
But under him, I'm sure it was about the 250 to 300,000 pound mark per win. So with inflation, I think it must be pushing £1 million for a win. And then so I don't think Alistair Jackson is 400 grand a point. I didn't think it was worked out per point, Alistair, if I'm honest to you, pal.
I think you get a certain amount for a draw.
It's a certain amount for a
win. Yeah.
Aye, it might be 400 grand for it, unless it just means for a draw and he's calling it a point. That's fine. But obviously, financially, there's big rewards, Jonathan. But it does keep us in the mix going into the last game. And I think we don't need any luck or favour or rub of the green to beat Shakhtar convincingly at home tomorrow. I think we might come of age tomorrow in the Champions League, albeit I stand by it, I think it's slightly false to be saying it's coming of age. If we were to win 4-0 and everyone goes all ballistic and says, told you so, I think they're kidding themselves on a wee bit, because the game doesn't come with quite the same pressures. We're on a hope and a women a prayer here for the Europa League, Jonathan, and we're out the Champions League. That's not the same circumstances as the previous 4 matches that we've competed in, albeit competed well, but ultimately walked away with 1 point from 4. However, let's beat Shakhtar tomorrow. Let's do all the things we've done in the other games, but get our rewards for it. Could that luck come then, the following week? How do you see this group playing out?
Well, I think tomorrow's important for us, because I think we need to get this monkey off our back and win a Champions League home game. It's been far too long since we've actually won a home game in the Champions League at Celtic Park, and we need to get that sorted out sooner than later, particularly if we have aspirations of playing in this competition year on year. If we're going to suggest that this is going to take a bit of time, which I think the fans are quite happy to give, Ange time and call this a sort of learning curve, if you like, even if it ends up with us finishing bottom of the group, provided we go back in again next year and there's a bit more progress made and people can kind of see that happening year on year, then people will be a bit more patient, I think, with the process there. But if we're looking at it tomorrow, they need to get that win. They need that monkey off the back. They need to show that they can win at this level as well. And Shakhtar at home represents the best opportunity in this group to get that done. They'll feel extremely frustrated, I think, when they look back on this campaign that they didn't beat Shakhtar away. And that's ultimately what I think is going to come back and bite us in terms of finishing third in the group, because we were far better than them for the vast majority of that game, apart from a little spell before half-time where they were quite good when they got their goal. So I think if we're looking at it tomorrow, I expect Celtic will go all out. I think it's going to be another one of these games where Ange will throw the attacking players on from the start. I think, he's going to be looking at this as a must-win, so I think he'll treat it like a must-win and pretty much go all out for it in the early stages. I think Celtic have the capability to wipe Shakhtar aside in the first 20-25 minutes if they hit the levels they are capable of, and they have shown they are capable of this season. Shakhtar could be in for a a difficult evening at Celtic Park if we can get ourselves to those levels. I think it's going to be very interesting, though, Russell, with his team selection. Let's have a look at it once again. I know we bang on a lot about Giakoumakis on this.
Go on.
However, there's a good reason for that, and that is the fact, Giakoumakis again gets a crucial goal
Just 'cause
on
we love
Saturday. Yeah, well, we do love him as well, but there is method to the point as well.
There is.
And Giakoumakis scores an absolutely crucial goal for us on Saturday when we're actually losing the game, and he grabs the game by the scruff of the neck from a corner, gets us back level with a terrific header to get us back on level pegging. But I think pretty much every game he started this season, he scored. And I don't think he's really been afforded the opportunity yet of playing in a Champions League game from the start. I think Giakoumakis has to play up front tomorrow. I really do. And if that means Kyogo has to sit out and wait on the bench for his opportunity, then I think that's only fair. My concern is the fact that Ange tends to go back to Kyogo in these games. And I feel like he might well end up doing that again. I just think that would be such a mistake if he was to do that. I think my other concern with this as well, and I know we do talk about this chap a lot on the bus too, is Aaron Moy, who he was okay to a point against Hearts. He was okay to a point. I know some people were coming out and saying he was a man of the match performance. We even had Liam Colo in our WhatsApp chat trying to suggest he was a man of the match performance.
I think Liam had his first couple of Morgans in a couple of weeks or something, Jonathan, because it was just, I mean, come on.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think he was getting too much support from the rest of us on that particular call. But Aaron Moy, I'd be a wee bit more concerned with starting as well in this type of games. I just think we need our fast players on the park from the start. I think the fact that Aaron Moy started the last few games, and to be fair to him, I think he's done okay. I think he did pretty well against Hibs, did all right against Hearts for me. Misses an absolute sitter, right enough. I wouldn't trust him.
Then it mattered though, Jonathan.
And that matters.
Get this right.
Yeah,
We're
right.
2-1 down when he misses that. We're 2-1 down when he misses that. This is the guy who's, his league's above. He'll coast it. Well, he certainly coasts all right. But see, when he came to the crunch, he's a bottle merchant. He is not gonna. If he starts against Shakhtar at home, then I think that would be a real deviation from what we're being told by the manager our approach is. Okay? Our approach in these games wasn't going to be the same. I'm going to then watch very closely how that first half goes against Shakhtar Donetsk with a Moy in the team than what that first half was against Real Madrid in the opening game. If we can get back up to that pace, that intensity with Aaron Moy in the team, I will be astounded. And I'll be gladly astounded, of course, but it won't fucking happen, right? The team don't play with that same intensity, Jonathan, when he's in the team. They don't play with that same pace. However, we've seen evidence in this competition that we can do it against better teams than Shakhtar. He can't be in that starting lineup.
No, for me, I would go back to the midfield three in Leipzig. I think it has to go back to O'Reilly, Atati, and Haksabanovic in the 10. For me, that's what I would be doing on this one and going for the throat,
Big
and
time.
then he can take his pick out on the left between Maeda and Kyogo. I think Forrest probably starts on the right, but you can argue for Abada as well. There's opportunities there, but good competition out in the wide areas there, and I think whatever options he goes with out wide, we can live with any of those players really. So we'll see how that plays out. I have a sneaky feeling though he might persevere with Moy. He seems to have taken a liking to him over the last couple of games, Russell. You've got to remember he did make quite a few changes and rotations over the last 3 matches, but one of the constant figures was Aaron Moy, who's played the last 3 games, which is quite unusual considering how many changes Ange tends to make, on a game-by-game basis. He tends to be making at least 3 or 4 changes each match at the moment. Yeah, Aaron Moy seems to have cemented his spot in the team after a good performance.
Why do you think that is?
Hibs. I think he has him as a favourite. I do. I think Aaron Moy is one of his favourites because I'll go back to it. That I know we bang on about Giakoumakis, but as I say, there's good reason for it. Giakoumakis has not really put a foot wrong when he started the game, yet he gets dropped the next match almost every time.
Do you want to hear a stat?
Yeah, okay.
I was watching the stats drop on the Endless Celts. Good friends of ours last night, and I enjoyed it. Giakoumakis, and he starts for Celtic, has scored. This is just starts. 71% of his starts he scored.
Wow. I know. It's
I
crazy.
don't think folk get that. I mean, I don't think folk understand how good that is. I would love to know what Henrik says. If I froze.
Incredible. No, it'd be incredible.
I would love to know what, and someone I'm sure will be able to find out. What is Henrik's starts to goals? I know he did, 242 goals. I think it was 312 games, 323 games. But how many of them did he start? And what percent? And then how many of the games he started did he score in? I think he'll be the only one, if anyone, Jonathan, ahead of what Giakoumakis is. Obviously, Henrik's over far more longevity. We're not comparing the two. But fucking hell. What was Kyogo's ass pulled at? It's around 55, I think they said. 55%, 56%, if my memory serves right.
It doesn't feel like he's scored as many when he started
disparity in that
season. Yeah. I mean, he brings a lot to the team, Kyogo, in other ways that Giakoumakis isn't able to bring, of course. But if you're wanting a goal scorer, then Giakoumakis is your man.
We have to talk about the reality, Jonathan. Goals to starts. Never, ever have we been able to afford ever to not have a striker with a 71% goal scoring return from the starts that you give him, not start our big games. We've never had a player like that in our life.
No, of course not.
It doesn't exist. There's no. I feel like I'm losing my mind when I think about stuff like that. So 71% of the times I start him, he scores. Yet, I'm pretty unconvinced he will start in a crucial game tomorrow. I don't think he will start.
I don't think he'll start either. I think he'll go back to his tried and trusted. Well, it's tried anyway. Kyogo, not so much trusted at Champions League level. But I mean, if you're asking me, it has to go to Giakoumakis, that position. I think the rest of the team pretty much picks itself, doesn't it? Really, I can't imagine there'll be too many surprises in the defensive line. Greg Taylor will no doubt come back in at left back after getting his goal against Hearts. Thought he was unlucky not to start that game. Taylor, again, another position he was quite happy to improvise with. I've got a big problem with Burnaby. I think he's done quite well when he's played, but I think Taylor has proven himself so far this season that he's a bit better. He's a bit more trustworthy in the big games, Taylor. So that'll take care of that side. Right back, Russell. Do you think there'll be any debate there? Does Juranovic comfortably slot back in? Probably.
Juranovic. We're getting told there's no favourites. I can see it in the comments, and I'm going, well, honestly, like I am in no doubt in my mind now that this season, and maybe last season it was more of a debate, and maybe there was a bit of favouritism being a word on my part towards Ralston, just because of he's just that bit of getting it. And maybe that's a fan's, gift and right, Jonathan, to feel like that at times. This season, based on what I've seen, I see no reason why there's not a legitimate conversation to say Tony Ralston brings more to that Celtic team. He's better. He's got a far better final ball. He's tighter defensively and positionally. And I reckon, by the way, as well, incidentally, that the Hearts game away, we were playing against the best player outside the big two clubs, the big one club and the other club. Right, outside them, I think Barry Mackay is the best player. I think he has the most funfair in this league. And I think we put our best right back to deal with him defensively. And that is Tony Ralston. I think Barry Mackay would have had more joy. He had joy against Ralston, by the way, so I'm not going to be completely biased. There was a couple of times he skinned him and he made him look a bit foolish. I think he had more joy against Juranovic. But of course, that is subjective, Jonathan, because Juranovic wasn't on the park. Like that word? Like that word? See what I did?
Oh, I'm going to see how many times we're going to get a subjective klaxon or something. Something we'll get Phil to work something out for that one.
Phone Phil, Jonathan.
Phone Phil. We'll get him to do something with it.
Speaking of the big man, there he is. Hey!
Oh, hello. Sound the Phil klaxon, everybody. Hello.
What's happening, son? How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. How are you, gentlemen, tonight? Are you nervous? Are you ready for another fun Sutton Death?
Oh, I'm sure it's going to be so much fun. I've been looking forward to this all week.
Honestly, I actually look forward to this the most on a Monday now, Jonathan. You know that. And Phil, I just think Sutton Death is something I was born to do. I was made for the pressurized situations. Jonathan wasn't. I'm turning my comments off now.
Okay, good stuff. Because yes, this is the fun part of the show,
Fun.
folks. At the end, with the last 10-15 minutes, we have this wee quiz, Sutton Death, where it was like a penalty shootout where both of the Bhoycie brothers here, they've got 5 shots each. I've obviously got a question here, lots of answers for them to pick from. If obviously they give me a wrong answer, it's a miss. And obviously score a goal if you give me a right answer, and whoever's got the most at the end of the 5, just like a real penalty shootout, is the winner. And of course, if we have to keep going, then well, we're going to Sutton Death. But I've put a cap on it because we'll be guessing all night. So at the maximum, you've got 10 guesses each, right? We don't want to be going to the point where you're doing 15, 16 guesses each, because we'll just do the tiebreaker at that point, guys.
Oh, there is a tiebreaker. Very good.
There is a tiebreaker.
Phil never trusts us to get many of these questions right, does he?
No, this is him saying if we do. He's saying if we do get 10 right. He's saying if we do. I think Phil's got a bit of faith in us here this week, Jonathan.
Aye, because there's quite a decent number of answers. But of course, first of all, Russell, because you won last week and are currently 2-0 up in the series. Sorry, Jonathan, I just need to remind the viewers, in case you haven't seen it. You get to choose. You wish to go first or second in tonight's shootout? First again.
I'm Paul Abbott walking down to that penalty spot, dude. Keep you up his weight against Valencia. That's who I am right now, taking the first penalty.
Okay, well.
Come on.
Tonight, there are a potential 20 answers in the pool compared to last week where there was only 12. So there's quite a big number here. And the date range tonight is not this century. It's from 2010 to present day. So it's a smaller date range than usual.
Jonathan's strong point.
Okay, so tonight, gentlemen, I am looking for the name of any Celtic player who has scored on the opening league game of the season from 2010 to present day. There are 20 different answers.
Opening day of the season.
Of the league season, yep.
Of course. It's the league season. Just think this season, Boyce, who do we play in the opening day? An opening day league scorer. It's so easy as hell, but your mind just goes to utter much. Opening day of the season, Scott Sinclair.
Yes, Scott Sinclair, 2016 and 2017.
I
will just ring off dates. I will not say, that was the game he scored in, because it might prompt the other person to go,
good.
Who else
Good.
I'll just
yes
say
or no,
the
yes or no.
So,
yes, I like
2016,
it,
2017, Scott Sinclair.
I'll give you the one you were looking for one of them. Jota.
Jota, indeed, yes. That's correct. Jono?
Odsonne Edouard.
Yeah, 2018, 2019, and 2020, Odsonne Edouard. 3 years in a row.
Oh, very good. I will go Stephen Welsh.
Yeah, Stephen Welsh, the other one from this year. 2-2 after 2 kicks each.
What was Jonathan's first guess, sorry?
Jota and Stevie Welsh.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Gary Hooper.
Gary Hooper is an incorrect answer. He is not scored on an opening day.
He's got 3. He's got 3 more. I'm out.
I am going to go with the player who used to play up front with Gary Hooper, and I'm going to go Anthony Stokes.
Anthony Stokes, 2011, 2013, and 2014. A goal machine on the opening day. Yep.
James Forrest.
Yeah, James Forrest in 2016 is a correct
lot of
answer.
averages. A lot of averages.
There's 101 goals to choose from, so got to be one in there, isn't there?
One had to be on there.
Yep, I am going to go Ki Song Young.
You're correct. 2011.
He's got his
It was a good goal as well. It was against Hibs, I'm pretty sure. I watched it in your pub, Russell. It was good. It's a good game.
Mm-hmm.
I wish I could remember those days, mate. That'd be fucking coming in handy now. Yeah, I think he's got me here. I'll be honest. I really don't know. I can't picture one of the games. I'm going to say Ryan Christie.
Ryan Christie is correct. He scored in 2019 on the opening day of the season. So Jonathan to win it, mate, to make it 5-4.
Do I actually even know another one? I'm going to probably end up guessing here, to be honest. I've got a couple of ideas, but I'm trying to think if this one I know definitely scored.
It's one of those ones you're watching. Yeah, go on.
I'm going to say Samaras.
Georgios Samaras, it's a big shout. And I can tell you, Jonathan, Samaras is incorrect. He did not score on the day of the season. You've let him back in here. Let him back in. So it is a 4 apiece after 5.
He never lets me down, Samaras.
I give up.
Now we're into Sutton Death. Here we go.
Oh, fuck. Oh, fuck. Okay. Who scored goal? What about Stuart Armstrong?
Stuart Armstrong has not scored on the opening day of the season.
Has anyone guessed Lee Griffiths yet?
Lee Griffiths, 2015, 2017, and 2019 is indeed a correct answer. Well done. Oh no! Yes. So the full range of answers. You've got 2010, guys.
I never said him.
2010, obviously Neil Lennon's very first season in charge. Paddy McCourt scored the opening day up at Inverness.
Against Inverness,
when he beat everybody, basically just weaved past them as he does. We've also got Chris Commons in 2012 against Aberdeen, one that he went right under the goalkeeper.
I was thinking of Commons.
Neil Beaton.
So I was going to say instead of Samaras.
It was Callum McGregor's got 2, one under Ronnie, of course under Ronnie because he started that season so well, and one in 2017 against
McGregor.
Callum McGregor has got 2. Stefan Johansson's got 1 in 2015 against Ross County.
I would never have got that. Never.
Tom Rogic against Livingston on the opening day of the 2018 season. Olivier and Cham get 2 as well, 2018 and 2019. Here's one you would have done really well to get. Mikey Johnston scored 1 against St Johnston on the opening day.
Yep. That's coming back.
These 2 are really hard because this is from the COVID season. Jeremy Frimpong
give us clues
on the opening day.
Right, give us a clue for the last one for a bit of fun.
Okay, well, there's 2 more left, but one of them is, again, COVID season, a striker that didn't really amount to much.
Ajeti.
No.
Ajeti. Was it not? The other one?
There was another one that season.
Oh, I forgot that season already existed, to be honest.
Yeah, I'll try and
Another striker?
Another striker that we had on our books as well, yes, indeed. Right. Started that season with a couple of goals. People thought, he's going to come on to
Paddy
Klamala. Patrick Klamala, that's the one.
Patrick Klamala,
Aye. Edward scored a hat-trick that day. Jeremy Frimpong and Klamala scored. And, of course, the other one, the only game that we've lost on the opening day in that range was at Hearts last season. Tony Ralston scored the only goal. You were just talking about him before I came in.
Oh, of course. That was a great goal as well.
Aye, so Jonathan, you have won. You made it 2-1, and it means that you'll get the first choice next week if you want to go first or second. So you've got that advantage in your back.
There we go. Off the mark. Off the mark. Now that's it. Normal service has been resumed. There we go.
2-1
We're on the way.
Enjoyed that, lads. That was good. Fair play. So 2-1.
Good fun.
Aye. 2-1. Anyway, we'll call it a night. Phil, thank you as always for joining us.
No worries at all.
You look forward to the game tomorrow?
Oh, aye. I always am, mate. I'll see how I feel before kickoff tomorrow. Hopefully, sure? Man, I'll go with a lot of hope that we will do it because we do just need to get a win first and foremost because we ain't done it since Ajax in 2013.
That 7-game run. Michael Ross came in earlier and he was right. I meant to talk about it. It was 7 defeats in a row in the Champions League. That's really. I mean, that is a far cry though from Celtic Park used to be able to elevate players of lesser ability to a level you felt like you were in dreamland watching them. How has it changed so much? I mean, people could talk about ability in the golf. I just don't subscribe to it, lads. I genuinely I don't think you know. I think from younger folks' point of view, fair enough, because theirs are so getting saturated with this guy's of a crazy level because he's paid so much, right? I'm not joking. The guys we've seen and we managed to scythe down at Celtic Park, where, Ronaldinho's, Seedorf's, Kaká, like we could do it against all these guys with Paul Telfer's at right back, look at the Man United highlights, that highlights when that Shansuke Nakamura scores that free kick. It's Paul Telfer and a 36-year-old Neil Lennon jumping on him at first. And then it's Gary Caldwell, a Bosman for Hibs.
Evander Stowe, I think, might play in that game as well.
we need to accept that this golf thing is it's a wee bit of bullshit. I know the wages and the disparity with that is massive, but are you telling me this modern day Celtic couldn't afford a Gary Caldwell or a 35-year-old Paul Telfer or have a 36-year-old Neil Lennon in their books? Yes, they could. They could afford all that right now. So this is nonsense. I just feel that we need to stop feeling like the uninvited guests. We want to be part of this. If we want to be part of it, the only way we're going to get any sort of credit is if we walk away with a win, at least one win. And Shakhtar's a team that are there for the takings, surely.
It's got to be into it. I mean, you're talking about the disparity yesterday on the Sunday Blair. We took a brief look back at the classic Massimo Donati winning goal against Shakhtar, that game from 2007. We had Stephen Presley and Chris Killen on the park at the end of that game. Stephen Presley. John Kennedy went off injured. That was the last game I think Kennedy actually played for us. He went off injured that night, and Stephen Presley finished the game at centre back. And very good Hessley got taken off, and Chris Killen was up front at the end. We're chasing a goal to get it through, and we sent him on. We still won the game in the end.
Crazy.
It shows you the quality at that time as well. We're still getting wins in the Champions League.
Well, before we go, we will just get a quick prediction thing, because it's just what you're meant to do, I suppose, isn't it? I'm going to say we will do the statement win tomorrow night, and I want to be hopeful this time. I think the shackles are off. I think the pressure's got to the players. I don't think they will have the same doubt in their finishing this time round, because I think it's a bit of a cop out in my opinion. But because there's less of that pressure there, I think the finishes we expect to be finished will occur. And I think based on the first leg that we see, well, not the first leg, but the first tie we've seen against Shakhtar in Warsaw, I'm going to base it on that, base it on the pressure being off a wee bit. We can just play, our own game without thinking of it. Oh, it's Champions League. 3-0. Jonathan.
Yes, I think as well that we are going to end up getting our statement win tomorrow. I'm not sure it'll be quite as many as 3-0. I'm going to say we'll concede, but I think we'll score 3 as well. I'm going to say 3-1.
That's fair.
Yeah, I'll go for 2-0. I think we'll be resolute at the back and we'll finish chances this time when they come up. So I'll say 2-0 to Celtic.
I like
We're
it. It's
very
3
comfortable wins there, aren't we?
3 wins from Bhoycie Bus. A win for Jonathan on the Sutton Death. Phil McGinley joining us as always at the end. Thanks as ever, Phil, for doing that. I really appreciate it. And thank you for yesterday's Sunday Blether. That's got up to, I think, 1.7 thousand, by the way.
Nice.
So huge well done on that, mate. And I think the channel over the weekend got something like 6,000 views. So we are flying right now. As I say, we are going to be back every day this week. Every fucking day. You're going to be sick of the sight of my face. You'll be even sick of the sight of Phil's probably at one point. And if you're lucky enough to see Jonathan between now and next Monday, then I'll be doing something right and convincing him. See you.
Comments about me deliberately trying to cause controversy. Well, I work in the media now, and you've got someone sitting there next to you who's an embarrassment to the media profession. He's an apologist. He's a charlatan.